see and hear. We are the people behind the curtain. We are the invisible ones. Prepare for a glimpse into a world many are unaware of and few have seen. Your journey begins now.
Last week, Angel was just about to discuss a new technology that's had difficulty establishing a foothold in our industry. Let's find out what that new tech is and whether or not it could help you on your next event. Angel?
I wanted to say one technology that really it's great technology, I want to say this, but it's had trouble catching up because of the range of ages that we deal with in our shows, right? And and backstage, you have some very senior people that have been around for, decades and decades, and some people are trying to, is like the show flow style, technology where it's like, yeah, it's on your laptop. It'll, and I've done some shows that are great with that. Mm-hmm. I've done some shows where people are like, I refuse to use it because it's not a piece of paper. Again, I'm not for or against the technology. I'm for the technology and the fact that it is saving paper, because it doesn't just kill you to see, stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of, sorry, I said too many stacks of, but that's how many stacks are left over of paper, left over, and you see that copier just going and going and going to where something could be changed. But again, sometimes those workflows don't work right and in the way that some people work. And because you're a stage manager, so you like a paper. There's nothing like being able to write something or a little note on a sheet of paper.
I also am very cognizant of the fact that I really only like to print my show flows once.
Yeah, right.
And not necessarily because of the trying to save trees, recycling, et cetera,
sure.
the waste of paper. Actually, for me, it's more about the fact that I know that some techs are never going to look at that. Mm-mm. They're just going to do what I say when we go into the show. Yeah. But some techs are writing notes. And if I hand you a fresh new show flow with the changes, updates, et cetera, and now you got to transfer all your notes from this one to that one.
To the next one. You're absolutely
right on that.
And
if only a few things change, then what's the point? I've also had shows, though, where so many things changed that at the end of the rehearsal day, I looked down at my show flow that I'd been writing on, and it was a bunch of black scribble marks of this circled here goes here, and this moves over there, and this is cut. No, it's back. This is gone, and now we're doing this video instead of that video. And I came in the next morning and I said, so I need to print myself a new show flow because things change so much. Does anybody else want a new show flow?
Sure.
And there was a production assistant standing next to me. She's like, how many do you want? I said, let me check. And I got on comms and I asked. And there was this pause. And then finally, you know what? I'll take one. Right. And then, I'll take one too. And then, give me one. I need 20. Just print new ones for everyone.
Right.
But I've been on shows where they used ShowFlow, the online system.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, 5 times a day, a production assistant came over with your new printed show flows with the changes that had been made.
Yeah.
And put them on. And by the end of that week, I had a stack that was that big of all the show flows that I never looked at. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what the changes were made. And I was sitting next to the stage manager. And at one point, I'm looking at the show flow on my laptop, and I'm like, oh, I should probably track the stage manager because we're in show, right?
Right.
Because you can do that. And whenever the stage manager's going through it, it tracks with them. And I click on it, and I hear, oh, somebody's tracking me. Oh, who's that? Who's tracking me? Somebody's tracking me on show flow. Oh, does that mean I have to pay attention to this thing? And I'm like, you're the stage manager. What do you mean I have to? He was using the paper.
Sure.
And I was like,
and that's my point on that. So different people look.
And I went, you know what? Okay, fine. I'll stop tracking you. And and I was the LD on that show, so I'm like, I'm going to do it. But I agree. And I was a big one saying, hey, listen, the batteries never die on paper.
Yeah.
But what's the old adage? A poor craftsman blames his tools.
Yeah.
If you don't use the tools properly, then. Sorry, it's just, then...
It's not the same thing, but to me is akin to when somebody goes, hey, man, I tried sending you this 44 meg video on email, and it didn't go through. The server kicked it out. I go, yeah, because email is not meant to do that. That's why Dropbox with links or, pick your online, drive with links was made so you're not, bogging down and making some system admin pull their hair out because they see your mailbox is now 25 gigabytes because you not only send it once, but now you forward it and forward it. And you're right. I mean, it's a tool, use the right tool for the right job.
Right.
Which
is why I'm still a big fan of USB thumb drives.
Exactly.
And almost now on a yearly basis, I go out and I buy a newer one just because it's USB 3.0 gets faster. And I do have one client in particular whose PowerPoint decks can get up into the gigabytes.
Sure.
And because of resolution size, but also the graphic nature of what's in those things. And, having a 4 gig USB 1.0 stick is not going to do it. You can't email it, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, it's choose the proper tool and then use the tool properly.
And I just thought of something else that I wanted to say about people not learning their lesson on something. I hope that after COVID-19 that production companies can learn that by spending an extra $100 or $50, $250, even $300 on a record drive as opposed to a 7,200 RPM spin drive can save them so much labor at the end of a year that money that they spend on that drive is going to pay itself off. How many times have you and I loaded out and the records are still being transferred to those old 4 terabyte drives?
Oh yeah.
Right. And people don't learn. It's like, oh, that other drive's so much more expensive. And I get it. But how about the time that you're holding back a crew?
Yep.
And making sure don't unplug that thing. Nobody unplug the power on this thing or whatever it is. It's like
it's because basically your record op becomes the power maven.
Exactly.
For loadout. Don't unplug my. It's not really even about transferring the files. Right. It's don't unplug my power.
Yeah. But anyway, I hope that we learn. That those little things make such a huge difference. In the end, to make sure that we keep moving forward.
But there's also the old adage of you can't build a better mousetrap.
No.
And there are some pieces of gear within all departments that, I mean, how old is the SM58 and SM57?
Well, how old are DSAN Perfect Qs?
Yeah, right, exactly. How old? I mean, they did revise the Parcan in the 90s, but I would postulate, and I think I would hope that there would be several other LDs and lighting folks out there that would agree with me that a Source 4 PAR is not a true PAR.
Right.
It is not it is an improvement in the sense of power consumption and ease
lens
of use
choices,
and lens choices, et cetera, and changing that out. But it is not a true Parcan.
No, it's not. Right.
Which was in the lighting world, that was the Parcan was the mousetrap of lighting instruments. It literally was originally started as a coffee can with a parabolic light in it.
Right.
Parcan. That's where it got the name. And so, there's and I would even say surmise, even with things like ShowFlow and some of those tools. And I know there's another. I can't remember the name of it. I know there's another one, at least, ShowFlow queuing type software-based system out there. I just can't remember the name of it, so I apologize to them. And they're hard for those to catch on, and which is interesting in terms of some of the new technology that doesn't always catch on, and why that is, and what's the reason behind that. Which maybe now during COVID is an opportunity for people to go out and investigate. What else is out there? What are the ways to do things? And I think we talked about in one of the last episodes that during this pandemic time that many of the companies, the manufacturing companies or the software companies, have actually put out a lot of training and made it available to people for free.
Well, I was about to say the one thing that wasn't really when we were, young bucks out there was YouTube wasn't around. I mean, how many millions of hours of learning have been done on YouTube? When I got
started, the internet wasn't around.
Likewise. I mean, sure. No, but I'm saying,
it was on some college campus, somewhere, but the World Wide Web 2.0 hadn't shown up yet.
Right.
And and you only learned by being out on show sites and being taught by, mentors of some sort or somebody that had been there and being walked through it. There were no opportunities. I mean, there were books. You could go read a book, but the wealth of information and the wealth of places and opportunities and where you can go to gain more knowledge about pretty much anything is unprecedented in history.
And one other one is a lot of companies are making simulators now. Back in the day, you had to have the board.
Right.
Back in the day, you had to have the piece of gear. Now I can just set up a simulator. I mean, Barco's been really good about that. MA's been, a lot of manufacturers have made that available. At least I know processes that need to happen to make this thing work. To where before you'd get on something and be like, it's a macro. How do I build that? Or how do I do a preset? Or how did whatever. So anyway,
but even to that point, I mean, and like you said, some of the stuff that's out there. I mean, and going back to even pre-COVID or but on PC, MA on PC, and MA 3D have always been free.
Yep.
Which is it's a simulated board that runs a simulated version of your rig that you can see, and pre-program your show. It's always been free. And I know that there's other tools out there. I don't think SmartSource. I think you have to pay for that, don't you?
I think you have to.
Yeah. I don't know what, maybe our audio friends can help us out with.
Oh, Smart Live.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's demo versions.
Sports Sounds, I think.
Sports Sounds, I believe one's an actual,
Sports Sounds. There's a couple, and QLab. I think the interface, there's a light version that you can start with and at least learn the program.
Sure.
And there's also, there's several other software programs where there's a light version or a trial version where you can go and learn how to do it.
Right.
Versus, no, you have to buy the $80,000 piece of gear.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to go.
Exactly.
Or you have to spend the money to go to LDI and go to a training session, or go to NAB and go to a training session, or something like that, or Infocom, or NAM.
Sure.
Now it's like there's so much that you have access to at your fingertips. So if as we were talking about, like revamping, learning new skills, revamping old skills, or repurposing old skills. In this time to get out there and find something, it's like if you're and I don't say this to insult the technicians in our audience, but if you don't come out of this with some new skill or some new process of doing something, or a betterment within a skill, and you haven't been working, then I frankly think you've kind of wasted an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely.
To improve your career once business comes back, because business is going to come back. Shows are going to come back. Though those who kind of sat back and went, well, all right, I guess just collect my unemployment check and play video games.
And just the other day we were talking about that and I know people like you and I have been hustling out there, and I hate the term, but it's the truth, just like I hate the word cloud and pivoting and the new normal and everything else. We actually, that's what we've been doing. It's been hustling. Yeah. But amazingly, the other day I sat down, and just right now, I actually have to go right now, but we're still, I'm not saying that to whatever, but because I have to do a show tomorrow. Right.
Right.
And the whole thing is, you could either sit at home and, feel sorry for yourself. And I get that there's just going to be that period of that.
Yeah.
But at some point you go, look, man, I've got to do something. I got to go forward. It might not be in the thing I was doing. That might be gone. Let's look at something new.
Right.
Right. And thankfully I set myself up for something before this that it's still in the live industry, but it's something that's also in the integrations industry, with the color calibration thing.
Right.
And so that's actually gone really well. And so, but again, it was always positioning. It's almost like diversifying your portfolio in a financial situation where you're diversifying your skills in your work situation, and that will always keep you. Just like you're diverse in the sense that you do video editing and you do stage managing and you do lighting and all these other things, but yet you're ready to go to do the next thing too. And you're not just the one guy who does the one thing, right?
Right.
And
this year, so my son is in a band,
right?
And they had done an EP year and a half ago or whatever, and this college friend of theirs, brought him in. They recorded, they did this, and he did the best he could. They did the best they could, but they recorded it all in a day, and anyway.
Like the fit and finish wasn't there, probably.
They weren't happy with the result.
Sure.
And they were like, but they were like, all right. And they wanted to do a new thing. And they were talking about recording it in the garage. And I was like, hey guys, listen, I can help you out. Let me help you out. We have, we can figure something out and everything. So we took their equipment and they rented actually studio space at the place where my son used to take guitar lessons. And we went over there and we kind of cobbled together a couple of USB audio boxes and a console that the space gave us, which then started emitting a weird beep every 30 seconds. It was very strange. And we recorded some stuff, and then we came back here and we did some overdubs. And then I went and I listened to it, and I went, okay, this frankly sounds like ass. And then I went, you know what? I'm going to make a call. And so I got on the phone and I called up Ben.
Oh yeah, Ben McKay,
the guy who runs the audio department over at Alfred Media, one of our sponsors, and we're actually going to get into our sponsorship on them. As soon as I'm done telling this story, and I said, "Hey man, it's late December. What's the possibility you guys might have an entertainment mic package I could borrow? My son's band, you want to do this thing?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Let me know what you need." So I put together a list. I sent it to him. I went up there, found out they actually also had a console that would do multi-channel, multi-track recording.
Yeah.
We came down. We set it up in my wife's studio, which is right next door to this. We set up the console in here, ran a snake over, et cetera, and we recorded. And then I edited it, and then I sent it to another friend of mine in the industry who is actually a post-production audio guy to do the mix on it. And then I got in touch with another friend of mine in the industry who's been in the music side of the business and produced some pretty high-level record albums in his career. And he put me in touch with a mastering company, and we got it mastered. And the kids are just blown away. Yeah. But the biggest one was when I brought home the mic package, and I took a picture of it and texted it to my son. He was at school at the time. And I said, "Hey, I just picked up the mics." And he showed it to the bass player. They were in class together. And he said, "Hey, my dad just picked this up." And he said the bass player almost fell out of his chair. He's like, "What?
Right.
Where did he get all that?" And my son, this is one of those proud dad moments. He turns to me and he goes, "Because in this business, it's all about who you know. And my dad knows people." But the point of that is, though, as I went through that process, the guy who was mixing it, I was using Adobe Audition. He uses Reaper.
Sure.
So we talked and I was like, "Oh, you know what? You can download Reaper. There's a 60-day free trial, right? Before you have to buy it." And, but when COVID hit, they went, "You know what? It's free until June something or other, whatever."
Sure.
That was back in March. They're like, "We're not going to charge it till this time." So it was like, "Oh, cool. I'm going to learn this." So I've been learning Reaper. And there's some stuff that it does that Adobe Audition doesn't do. There's some stuff that Audition, I think, does a little bit better. But, they're different systems and how they do it. And in fact, we are recording the audio for this podcast on Reaper. They are not one of our sponsors, but we love them. But, but that was something that was like, well, you know what? What else am I going to do? I mean, I'm sitting there, I guess I could, I'm going to learn how to use this program. But I also did another thing where I revamped, when I was talking about the virtual events, I went in and looked at my show flow. And after I saw the setup at Alfred, I went, okay. And I went back and revised my show flow to work for the virtual world. Sure. And we just tested it out last week. It was the first one I'd done in a while. And I, had to make some tweaks and stuff. But for the most part, and the producer after the show said, "Can you send me that show?" And I'm like, yeah, for a small fee. I built this. It's got a lot of stuff in it. But, but she's like, "No, I just love the layout. I love the way you've done this." And I was like, "Yeah, well, because I took the time and I went, you know what, let's revise how we're doing this because I'm not going to be calling shows the same way." Which does bring us to one of our sponsors. So some of the equipment that we are using for the Invisible Ones podcast was provided by Alfred Media Services. Alfred Media offers production technology and broadcast services for all your event needs. You can host your event from their permanent studio in Dallas, on-site at a venue of your choice, or completely remote using their control rooms. What sets Alfred Media apart is they have the team, determination, experience, and technology to help you realize your vision for your event, whether it's virtual, hybrid, or live. So visit them online at alfredmedia.com or give them a call at 1-800-554-9144 and tell them the Invisible One sent you to have your vision realized. And so at this point, we're going to take a break and shut it down for a moment because Angel does have to leave. He has a gig. But we're going to pick this up another part soon and get back into the discussion about how we learn and how you can better yourselves for what's going on in the industry currently and what's coming down the road as we get back to work and back to business.
Yep. And I was going to say, please don't hate me for having a gig.
Yeah.
Not you, but I've gotten some like, you're working? Why are you working? I'm like, well, we just discussed why we're working. But anyway.
Exactly. Why are you working? Because we're putting in, because we laid the groundwork, we put in the work and we pursued it. Mm-hmm. And there are other people out there, we're not the only ones. There are other people out there that are also still, that are working. We're not all out of work.
And if Tomm and Angel can cook, if Tomm and if Tomm and Angel can work, so can you. Anyway.
Awesome. All right, folks, we'll be back momentarily. And we're back. You had a gig.
I had a gig.
I had a gig.
You had a gig.
Then we were scheduled to record on another day, and then you had another gig that popped up, so we couldn't do that.
Yep.
And then I had a gig that was wrapping up yesterday, so now we're back. We're gigless today, so we're here.
Yeah, sort of gigless.
Sort of gigless.
There's a lot of pre-production going on for other gigs, but yeah, you're right.
So where we left off, we were talking about what you and I have done and what others can do in terms of learning new skills, repurposing old skills or current skills, and then maybe even pulling skills out. But one of the things we discussed in getting ready for this episode was about how you market yourself. And this is more for the independents, but even for those that are full time that might be furloughed and are looking for something. How do you market yourself? And I think we talked about through the course of our careers that we have done several different things within the industry to get gigs. And currently, I work mostly as a show caller, show director, or TD. Still occasionally do lighting design. But recently, with the COVID and with everything else, it's like, well, I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And I know how to do this other thing. So starting to put that out there in terms of, looking for work. Part of what we, I think, talked about was like, when do you do that? And how do you do that?
Sure.
How do you get it out to the people? Because I know I personally have dealt with people see you. We tend to sometimes box people into these the way we first meet them.
Yeah, like we discussed earlier.
Right.
About, hey, for some person you're just the EIC, but from some other person you've ran media servers or whatever. For you like I discussed last time, I had you on my phone as Tom Gillies, lighting designer, right, forever. And you really are a stage manager now, and a TD and those kinds of things. And so I guess it's almost like that whole thing, like pigeonholing an actor in a movie because they did really good in that movie. Like good example, Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. You always see him as Jesse, but he's done so much more. And bringing it back to us here, it's like we do so much more. And we also talked about the people who only do what they do. Like you only know some people, they're just comm guys.
Right.
I think to me, what I like to do is I usually like to target a certain customer and what their needs might be. Like if you go to a house that has a bunch of E2 operators and they don't have many EICs, I'll go, hey man, do you guys need an EIC?
Right.
And that to me, that's my way of targeting things and bringing it down for them so that they can just digest it and be like, Angel's an EIC for me. Now when we're at the gig and they see, you see that maybe somebody might have an issue with an E2 or something like that, then you go, hey, I actually have an E2. I actually own E2s. Well, I mean, I'm lucky enough to own some E2s, but that's what I mean. In my occasion, like you've seen occasions where you're doing your stage managing and you might see somebody who needs some light design or something like that, and that's how you market yourself then.
Or graphics.
Or anything in that sense.
Need help with their graphics, and I'll go, hey, I know how to use Photoshop. I know how to use Illustrator. I know how to use PowerPoint. And if you need help with that, I have jumped in with many clients and helped them rebuild their graphics.
Sure.
Because our graphics op was either too busy doing something else, or in certain cases, our graphics op was really just a button pusher and did not know how to, fix things.
And then oftentimes, for example, we just did this, convention. It was a virtual convention, but I'm not going to name the name of it, but there arose the need to cross-convert, transcode, as it were, a bunch of videos from unusable codecs to a codec that a player would use. And so, those also times, those are opportunities that you need to grab during a show or something where you fill a need. Not saying you become the hero, but you also do kind of save the show and make people's lives easier by being able to provide that service, whether it be, encoding transcoding, 40 videos, 40 to 100 videos overnight.
Yep.
And making some overtime. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And you also provided a service, and now you become that person for them as well. So that's what I'm saying. I know we're talking about narrowing things, but also how to market that stuff and be opportunistic about it, I guess it's not a bad way of saying it.
I don't think being opportunistic in certain cases is a bad thing.
Right.
You're looking for an opportunity where you can expand your, whether it be expand your client base or expand your opportunities to work.
Sure.
You're seeing an opportunity. You're seeing a need.
Right.
You have the skill set to fulfill that need. So you step up and you say, hey, I can take care of that for you. And I think actually now, and we talked about when is it good to narrow and when is it good to expand. I think, depending, when I left the industry for a little bit and got out and did some other things. And then when I got back in, I was like, well, I don't have the same contacts. I'm in a different city than I had been previously. I need work, so I just put it out. I can do whatever I needed to do. And so I expanded my range of what I was willing to do, what I could do, et cetera. And then as I started picking up more work and got more clients, then I narrowed and said, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm just going to focus on these 2 or 3 things. And for, in certain cases, for some people, it's just, I'm just going to do this one thing.
Sure.
I think now with COVID and the lockdown and the change to the industry, I think now is one of those times where expanding is where you are going to provide yourself with more opportunities to get more work. Because as we talked about in the virtual episode about doing virtual events, as you and I have both seen on those events, many people are doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jobs.
Yeah.
And so if you can do all those things, there are more opportunities for you. If you only do one thing, less opportunity to slot you in. Yes, we might need this, this position filled.
Right.
But while you're there, we may also need this done and this done. And if you only do this one thing, then it's less likely you're going to get the call. Right. Than somebody who can do the other 2 or 3 things.
Exactly. And I wanted to kind of expand on that too. And I wanted to say, I know some people are desperate. Some people are, desperate. Some people are, I've seen online that some people are desperate to, we can't feed our kids, whatever. I would really suggest that doesn't become the opportunity to say that something, something, and especially intricate, like hey, I can run and build PowerPoint graphics when you've never done it, or I can run in, a D3 or I say that because it's happened, or need to, or anything in that in depth. So I think there's 2 ways of going about that. Is the first way is ask somebody if they have a system right now that's not being used and you want to learn a new skill, or you have a simulator or something like that, to start getting proficient at that. Right. And then you do some sort of low-level gig where it's not, life or death. And what I mean, obviously nothing we do is life or death, but you know what I mean. In the sense of production. Yeah. Some people might seem like it is. And then you work your way up to something, right? Get proficient at it. The best thing to do is, a lot of people learn, this is point A to point B, right? They just say, I know how to do a preset, and then I trigger it. What happens when somebody goes, hey man, that preset's wrong. I need you to do this, this, and this. Can you do that? And that's the difference between the guy or the gal who knows what they're doing and the guy or gal who just said they knew what they were doing. And then it's like that Elon Musk thing where he says he can sit in front of you and just ask you a few questions and immediately knows if you knew, if what you said on your resume was the thing or not. Right. And I think we find ourselves a lot of times covering for people who have said they could do something and that can't do it. So, and narrowing your work, I really suggest that you keep at it, you try it. You ask people who've done it and go, hey man, when you get into bad situations in your position, why? Like on an E2, it might be, something crashes or, something freezes or something like that. And lighting, as you might have a off-pan light or something like that that's not working correctly. How do you park that light or something like that? Something that people wouldn't know. But anyway, so that's my point. Don't go out there saying that you know something you don't know. That is the worst way to have somebody never call you back.
That's actually the fastest way to get somebody not to call you back.
Right.
Because you said you could do something, and it happens in a critical situation. And I'm sure you and I and many people out there could probably tell lots and lots of stories of somebody on show site saying they could do something and actually not be able to do it. When I used to work out in LA, and I'd get people that would call me up that would say, "Hey, can you refer me to so-and-so?" And I'm like, I don't really know you. Or even on a gig, somebody'd come up to me on a gig and say, "Hey, can you get me in with such and such company?" And be like, "We just met today and I don't really know you, but you can call them." But I would always tell them, I would say, be very specific about what you know, but more importantly, be very specific about what you don't know. Because the other side of that is, if you come in and you say, "Listen, I don't know how to do this, but I want to learn," or "I know how to do this portion of the job and I want to get better at it." Everyone in this industry, or most people in this industry, I would say, more than happy to share the knowledge, more than happy to take somebody under their wing and show them how to do something the right way. But if you come in with the attitude of, "Oh, I know how to do this and I don't want anyone to find out that I don't," you're really digging a big ditch for yourself that they will throw you in and cover you up with dirt, and so you're never seen again. Because you are, and I used to tell people this, as well. "Hey, can you recommend me?" Like, if I recommend somebody to one of my clients, right, and I barely know them, my client doesn't know them at all, and I say, "Hey, you should use this person," they said they're really good at it. I'm not putting your reputation on the line. I'm putting my reputation on the line. And if I suggest somebody to a client and they fail, that's bad. It feels like
It feels like I failed.
I have failed my client, and my client is then the trust that my client has in me is going to drop a little bit. So very, very important, like Angel was saying, to be clear about what you don't know. But if you want to learn, be clear about that, because if you show an aptitude and the desire to learn, many folks who've been in this industry for a long time are more than willing to share the knowledge, more than willing to take somebody and say, "Yeah, I can teach you how to do that. I can get you that." And then you go and you work on it. And like you said, lots of companies out there nowadays have equipment sitting on the shelf because we're not doing live events. If you have a relationship with that company, call them up, say, "Hey, I really want to get better. Is there an opportunity where I could either come to the shop and set some stuff up and get better? Is there a way I can, borrow that for a little bit, or download the software and do it at home?" Lots of simulators out there where you can do it on your computer. And then ask questions. Look for groups online that you can find. But I think in terms of the marketing, now is the opportunity to say, "Hey, you guys know me as this, but did you also know?" And I sent this email out to many of my clients a couple of weeks ago, and I had several people like, "Oh, I didn't know you knew how to do that. I didn't know you knew how to edit. I didn't know you knew these, audio systems, et cetera. And I didn't know I knew you kind of knew graphics, but I didn't know you knew all this about graphics, et cetera." So, and that's opened up some opportunities for me to get offers for some gigs. And you can do the same. You can take what you already know, learn, grow, and then really start reaching out. Don't just sit there waiting for the lockdown to end. And think, "Oh, you know what? Until they say live events are back, I guess I'm just sitting on my butt and collecting unemployment or whatever." And as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about, like, in my mind, like, I'm picturing a map of this country. I know every country's had this happen to them, but I'm looking at the map of the country, and in my mind, I have this like graphic where you see the hot spots where and obviously I'm here in Texas because there's a cold spot in the West Coast right now of dead zones. I mean, and there really isn't. There's like little pockets of things that are going on, but that's the other part of this is, where, is this going to require a move to continue, to be employed, and that's a serious thing. Right now you're looking at, lots of our friends from both coasts, the Northeast and out in the West Coast, of course, because they've handled the way they've cut things down, to, mitigate this pandemic. They basically shut everything down, and we are working in certain spots,
and some things are coming back really very slowly. But people see that here in Texas. I mean, we're still being cautious about everything, but we're a lot more open to do business. You know, and I've noticed that. I think that's the reason why we have been getting a lot more jobs these days. And again, that has nothing to do is to say like, oh, if you move to California, you screwed up, because nobody foresaw this, obviously.
Right.
But the thing is how the local governments have reacted to it, and how much availability they've given you to continue to work. And so yesterday, you know, I went to ETS and I went to Alford. You know, we were driving around, and I'm like, it's really good that even with, I mean, we still have to wear masks and we have to do the PPE stuff and everything else, but we're allowed to at least practice our craft, or at least do things. I mean, you had a gig yesterday. I've had a couple of gigs before, and we are doing all those things, but we were working, and that's, you know, I'm thankful for that. And you know, anyway.
And it's always fun because, you know, when you're on comm and you're wearing your mask, then, you know, all the crew,
right.
all the crew,
that's always the best thing, right?
So, but, you know, and, you know, like we talked about in the previous episode about virtual events and the changes there, you know, look at that. And I actually got to put it into practice on my last gig, talking to the client. Yeah. And we were explaining, and they were asking about something. I said, okay, well, unlike a live event, since we're doing this like a TV show, right? If you think about it like this, and I would use examples from current TV broadcast news programs. I'd say, you know how they do this, and then they do this thing. So that's what we're doing. And as soon as I made that relationship, that analogy, light on in client, you know, the client was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah. You know, so they were concerned about one person's entrance, and they wanted to make sure that, you know, person got on stage, the person had requested that we not film them when they went on stage. They didn't want their entrance to be on camera. So we said, yeah, we'll just cover it with the graphic, you know, that's we've got a title slide. We'll just put that up, and we'll wait until that person is in place before we put them on camera. Well, after we did the first show, they came, you know, one of the notes we got back was, you know, that they wanted her on stage sooner. Sure. And I said, yeah, well, absolutely. We can, but then I said, no, it's covered. Whatever you see, and we were sending the program feed to one of the DSMs. And I said, whatever you see in that box, that's what's going out to the audience. Yeah, that's your program. So when, you know, at that time, it's like, if they don't see themselves there, then know that they're not on camera. Right. They're not, and we're cueing them when they're on camera. That's how they do it in TV. It's only important what goes into the box. And as soon as I related that to our client, they were all like, oh, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that it was easily relatable. And which then also brings us back to this part, though, where in that control room, which, you know, it's not a big room. I mean, I was stuck in I think a 4-foot desk behind a door that was, open. I'm in that little corner.
The guest corner.
And, I've got room for my laptop, my multi-view, and that's pretty much it. I finally got a light, though. But I'm looking over, and, my video TD is switching screens, switching cameras, calling cameras, et cetera. My other guy next to him is doing, the background on the LED wall and the lower thirds and any overlays. And then I've got a graphics op that's actually doing graphics. He was in the studio, thankfully. But then I've got my playback, record, stream, timer op, and then I've got my A1 and my A2 that were, over in audio land. But even how they're doing things, and we were talking about that in terms of the audio console. And it's like, the live event consoles really don't, I mean, we can make them work for the virtual, but you really need like more of a studio type console. We were talking about, hey, if we want to do this and we want to add that in, we kind of need you need some more aux sends, and you need more of this. And, just kind of having those conversations with the crew and with the client, and basically presenting to them the ideas that you and I talked about in the virtual events episode. Right. I saw many times where just bringing that up, people were like, oh, and how I was calling the show. Sure. And I was explaining to my wife when I got back, I was like, calling a TV show, directing a TV show essentially. And I'm not directing the cameras. I'm, just whatever's going to program. Right. I'm like, I have to call somewhere between 3 to 5 times the number of cues that I would on a live event. Sure. That's what's required, and staying in touch and watching. And I was making sure that what was going out to program was constantly moving, changing, following the action, but keeping the people interested, right. In terms of what they're watching. Granted, that audience was not at home. They were at different venues around the country, but very small gathering, just, at those places. But it's the same thing. It's like they're basically just watching TV.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got, you know, as a show caller, show director, I was like, I had to make sure that whatever was going on the screen was just always moving, changing, adjusting, making sure that the information was getting up there when it needed to be, making sure, you know, camera shots, et cetera. So, but then I look around and I've got, you know, pretty much everyone in that control room is doing several different jobs. And then some of the people that were doing some other jobs, it's like, that's not their normal job.
Sure.
But they do know how to do it. So because they can do 3-4 different things, that's why they're in the studio.
Exactly.
That's why they're on the gig. Those that only do 1 or 2 things, they're currently not really getting as many calls.
Exactly. You know, diversify. It's just like your stock portfolio.
Yeah. Right.
Diversify what you do in your job. And, you know, you honestly, I mean, so a little bit of history here. I came from New Orleans, and New Orleans was very seasonal, right? So you had your festival season, then you had your Mardi Gras, you know, festival and Mardi Gras, 2 different things for me, because festivals were like, you know, French Quarter Fest, those kinds of things. And then you had what people would call Carnival or Mardi Gras season, which that was a whole thing on its own. And then you'd go around to, you know, as things were going to Christmas and all these other things. Well, there was a deficiency in job, you know, requirements for audio guys in certain times, video guys for some other times.
Right.
And so I just started, okay, if, you know, it literally became a function of, man, if I don't do this, I don't work. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get good at this. And I did it the same way. You know, it's like, hey, I asked people, hey, you mind if I hang out next to you in the console? Okay, can I come to the club tonight and put up microphones? Teach me how to mic it, you know, thing. That's when I was an audio guy. You know, video guys, I was doing new stuff. Hey, how do you balance stuff? How do you come in? How do you do the intro segments? How do you do B-roll? All these other things. And that's how it started. And then that kind of came to a bigger, you know, bigger understanding of what things were going, you know, how things fit together. And then I started to know which I could go to this TV station and get jobs during this time, because I knew that they needed more videographers for this stuff. Or on the festival side, you know, I could be a monitor guy, or I could do front of house guy, you know, doing sound. So that's how I became more, you know, multifaceted in that sense, because I needed it. But like if you work in one of the coasts and all you do is television work, I understand if you're just a camera assist or a camera guy, or, you know, or a TD or a grip or anything like that. I get that. But maybe within the studio itself, you could do a couple more things, so that maybe if you could work at another show, a sitcom or something, and then come into news or something like that.
Yep.
So anyway, that's the point. It's just diversify what you do, even if it's within one discipline. So
yeah, and then sometime down the road, when things change again after the pandemic is done with doing whatever it's doing.
Yeah.
It may, at that point now, you can re-narrow. But for now, I think now is the opportunity. The more things you can do on one show, the more opportunities there are, because somebody who can multitask, somebody who can do multiple things is much more valuable to the production company and to the client, because the clients, whereas yes, they're starting to do shows, et cetera, they're not spending the same amount of money.
Exactly.
The production companies they're not getting the revenue to be able to fill every position. But if you can do multiple positions, then there's an opportunity for you to start getting some work if you're currently not getting any work, or only getting a little bit here and there. So the more you know, and the more you can market that, the more opportunity you have to get back to work.
Right.
And so basically that's our show for today. Please subscribe to the show so you're notified when new episodes come out. And most importantly, though, please share. Like we said earlier, what's the 3 most important things in real estate? Location.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing in podcasts? Share.
That's right.
Check us out on the web, www.theinvisibleones.us. Get your Invisible Ones road gear so you can show people you're one of the magic makers behind the scenes. Please support our sponsors so we all can keep doing this crazy gig we love so much. Coming up, we're going to do a series of episodes where you can meet the invisible ones. We'll go by department, have several guests from all the different disciplines within the live events market: lighting, audio, video, LED, projections, production, scenic, others. I mean, there's a whole host. We've got to figure that all out in terms of who we're going to have on. But opportunity to meet the invisible ones. More info to come once we get our guests lined up. Until then, I'm Tom.
And I'm Angel.
And we are
the invisible ones.
So please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. Hit that like button. Check out our website and our merch store, but most importantly,
share it with your network and get the word out.
And as we used to say in Hollywood, love you, mean it, bye-bye. See you next time when we meet the invisible ones. Invisible ones disappearing back behind the curtain. Till next time in 3, 2,